Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So I promised a lot of you guys a comprehensive face-off video, and again, now that I've got a little bit more free time with my esports contracts kind of wrapping up, it's gonna allow me to do more of these in-depth gameplay videos for you guys. So I am not, I need to preface this, I am not an elite player at the game. I think I'm pretty good, but there is one thing that I'm very knowledgeable about, and that's face-offs and the strategy of the game. Okay, Twitch mechanics and all that kind of stuff. I'm definitely behind. These old thumbs aren't up to the same level anymore. But when it comes to face-offs, it's basically one big game of rock, paper, scissors, and I'm pretty knowledgeable when it comes to that. So the one thing I will say is it's kind of hard to make these videos just because it requires a lot of circumstantial stuff. But I want to go over strategies of face-offs more than just, these are the counters, because I am going to show you what counters what when you're playing the face-off. That's going to come down to like memory, okay? I'm going to have a graphic that will basically show you what beats what. But other than that, once you have that memorized, then it's up to you to know what your opponent is doing in certain situations. That way you can use it to your advantage throughout the game. So guys, before we get into that though, make sure you are subscribed to the channel for daily NHL content, and make sure you check out the Twitch streams. I stream every single day on Twitch at about noon Eastern time. I think my stream streak right now is like 109 days straight. So be sure to check that out. All right, let's get into today's face-off video. Alright, so the first thing that we've got to go over is the actual stances. Now, I've got Lemieux here. He is a right-handed player. So, to line up on the backhand, you put your right thumbstick, obviously, to the left, okay? So, when you put it to the left, you're going to get this kind of a stance, alright? He is what we call on the backhand, okay? This is a backhand draw, and there's a bunch of different variations that you can do of this draw, and it will work against different types, again, depending on what you're going up against. So this is what the backhand straight back looks like, okay? Now, you can also line up on the forehand, and that looks something like this. So same thing, this is with Lemieux, right-handed player, and now you see this is holding the right thumbstick over to the right, okay? So basically, it would be 3 o'clock, all right? And then it's just opposite for left-handed players. And again, this is very basic, but I'm just trying to help out any level of player. All right, so this is the forehand straight back. All right, and obviously it's going to look a little bit different, and it's just a sweep. Okay, so now let's get into, now that you know the backhand and forehand and what they look like and the differences and how to do them again. So the backhand will be, for a right-handed player, all right, it will be 9 o'clock on the right thumbstick. For a forehand lineup, it would be 3 o'clock on a right-handed player, and it's the exact opposite for a lefty, okay? Again, it sounds kind of complicated, but if you don't know this is very, very basic. You just need to go into rookie mode and practice the draws. If you don't line up and you don't press anything on the right thumbstick, you're going to lose almost every single draw that you go up against, okay? So you have to line up either backhand or forehand on the draw. All right, guys, so the face-offs have been almost identical for the last, 5 or 6 years. So I just went on Reddit and found this image, and you need to memorize this, okay? It looks a little confusing, but again, once I go through the video, when you go back to this video, or this image specifically, it's going to tell you, and you're going to know and see what it looks like, and you're going to be a much better face-off player. Okay, so we'll start on the left-hand side, the player one where you're controlling it, okay? It says the basic forehand. So that is lining up with a right-handed player, taking your right thumbstick and putting it to 3 o'clock. I show you what it looks like with the Mario Lemieux kit just prior to this, okay? That will be a tie-up, whether he's on the backhand or forehand to start the draw. A basic forehand straight back will win against any sort of tie-up. So it's very, very easy to win that one. However, it's also extremely easy to counter because the forehand stick lift or the backhand stick lift beats that, as you see what your opponent does. The big X is there along that first line. Now, when you do a forehand stick lift, again, I'm going to show you that. That beats the basic forehand straight back, okay? It also beats the backhand stick lift. You see, it's basically a big game of rock, paper, scissors. But because of how this is set up, there are face-offs that are a little bit more higher percentage. And again, that's going to come down to the strategy of face-off, and that's what I'm going to show you in this video. So now I want to show you what all of these face-off stances look like. The one other thing I do need to mention, that when you and your opponent do the exact same face-off, so say you both line up on the forehand and you both do forehand straight back, the player with the higher face-off rating wins almost every single time. Now, if you don't win and it's consistent, it might have to do that your opponent has a better ping to the server. That does play into it a little bit, but for the most part, it's whoever has the highest face-off rating. That is why Couturier and those cards that have really high face-off ratings are so valuable, because unless your opponent is actually doing the counter to what you're doing, you can basically have a 2 out of 3 chance to win, because either you're doing the same one as them, or if you're doing the counter to what you think they're doing, you're going to win the draw. All right, so we'll start off with the basic backhand, okay? Now, this specific face-off will beat a forehand stick lift as well as a backhand stick lift, okay? So if you think that your opponent is going to do a stick lift, you do a backhand straight back. And the reason why this one is actually a really, really popular face-off to use, something that I use early on, is because everyone anticipates a tie-up draw. Okay, so the way to beat a tie-up is to do a stick lift. The way to beat a stick lift is a backhand straight back. So you see how it all plays in, okay? Now, using that face-off specifically will come into play a little bit later on. But for this, what I'm just going to show you, this is what the animation looks like. So the right-handed player, you put your right thumbstick to 9 o'clock, and then basically you just go from 9 o'clock down to 6 o'clock when the puck's being dropped, and that's the basic backhand. And again, that beats the forehand stick lift or the backhand stick lift. All right, next up, I want to talk about the backhand stick lift, okay? So this is when you line up on the backhand. Again, as a right-handed player, you put your right thumbstick to 9 o'clock, and how you do the stick lift is instead of going down towards 6 o'clock, you go up to 12 o'clock. So it's 9 o'clock with a right-handed player, 3 o'clock with a left-handed player. It doesn't matter, though, on the finish, you go up instead of down, okay? Now, once you've done that, this will beat a basic forehand. So anyone that lines up on a forehand draw, the backhand stick lift will defeat it. It also defeats a tie-up. So on the backhand, it's a very easy way to beat the tie-up, as well as the basic forehand. So that is what this draw does. Again, the backhand stick lift beats the basic forehand, as well as the tie-up on either, forehand or backhand. All right, so next one we're going to discuss is the tie-up draw. Now, again, this one is going to be done. You can do it from either side, backhand or forehand, and you're going to press up on the left thumbstick, not on the right. So you line up on the forehand or backhand, and you push up on the left thumbstick. Now, remember, depending on how you line up, whether on the forehand or backhand, the counters are different. So if you see your opponent lining up on the forehand or backhand, you have to remember which actual ones defeat which. So again, refer to that chart. It's the easiest way. But the tie-up will beat the basic backhand, and that's really the easiest way to do it. It also is kind of a toss-up against the forehand stick lift. So again, this one is kind of a jumbled mess, but a lot of players do it because A, it's the easiest one, and even if you lose it, you have a chance at winning it. So it also sets up some really good offensive plays that we'll touch on a little bit later on in the video, but that is what this draw does and what it looks like. All right, now I'm going to show you what it looks like. The same thing on the tie-up with the forehand stance. Again, it is exactly the same. So if your opponent, you want to throw a different look at him, you can do the tie-up from the forehand stance. So this is what it looks like from the forehand. All right, next up, I'm going to show you the forehand straight back, or the basic forehand is what this chart's calling it. The reason why I don't recommend this one, first of all, it's only going to beat a tie-up, whether it's on the backhand or forehand. It's extremely easy for your opponent to beat because the odds are in their favor. Again, if you memorize the chart, okay, if your opponent lines up on the forehand, okay, you can do the backhand stick lift, and that will beat a basic forehand, but it will also beat a forehand tie-up. So essentially, just lining up with a backhand stick lift, you can essentially knock out two things. So the only way that you're going to lose that is if they do a forehand stick lift. So again, that's just something to keep in mind, guys. That's why I don't super recommend the basic forehand, the forehand straight back. But again, if someone's only doing tie-ups to you, this is how you defeat it with the forehand. Next up on the forehand is the forehand stick lift. Now, the one thing I need to mention about this face-off in particular is that it's a very slow animation. So if you're going to do it, you have to remember, if you're thinking about an offensive zone play, only use it if you are okay with guaranteeing yourself possession, and that's it, because it's really going to limit your time and ability to set up a play in the offensive zone. So just keep that in mind. So the forehand stick lift, again, that will beat the basic forehand, which is just the forehand straight back, as well as the backhand stick lift. So if you line up on the forehand and your opponent thinks you're going to tie up, and he does the backhand stick lift, you win by doing the forehand stick lift. Okay, so again, you're starting to see these counters, and I'm trying to drill them in your head. It takes a long time, but this chart is what you need to memorize. All right, so now it's time to talk face-off plays. And in NHL 21, there's really one go-to face-off play, and it's going to be a kind of a specific one. You're going to need to have a certain handedness on either side of the draw. It's why it's really nice to have a mixture of right-handed players and left-handed players, because you're not always going to be able to decide which side of the ice that you take your face-off from. So I'm going to walk you through what it is here, and this is kind of more of an unorthodox way to do it, but it's essentially the same kind of thing. What you're going to do is you are going to see how your opponent lines up. Usually what you want to do is, with a left-handed player, you can do a backhand straight back. But notice how I've got a right-handed player. So I've got to do the only draw that is going to get it back to my left defenseman, and that is a stick or a forehand stick lift, so a kickback draw, and that is going to get it to my defender. You see here, I get it to my defender. Now, the next point is very important. In most cases, if you do a backhand straight back or a quick face-off animation to get it back to your defender, you need to wait a half second for your left winger to trail out into the slot. And if your opponent is not playing for this play specifically, it's a one-timer every single time. All right, guys, now it is time to put everything that I've taught you in this video together and show you what I do when I enter every single draw in the defensive zone, because the defensive zone face-offs are far more important than the offensive zone. If you lose an offensive zone draw and they've got to come down the whole length of the ice, you maybe lose an offensive opportunity. You lose the draw in the defensive zone, and that is more than likely going to be a goal, or at least it's going to be a lot more time that you're not scoring. You're in your own zone, and you've got to play a lot more defense. All right, so in NHL 21, guys, as you climb up the ranks in Rivals or in Hut Champs, you have to enter into every single face-off thinking that that face-off play is what is coming. It is the essential go-to goal right now in NHL 21, and you need to be playing for it every single draw. Now, what you want to do in this instance right here, two things to note. One, he goes to the backhand stance with a left-handed forward, which means that he has got no option on this current stance to get it back to that left defenseman in the high slot. So I already don't have to worry about it. And then two, his winger on the right-hand side. So he can do a tie-up draw and come in with that winger. Now, it's not nearly as potent as it was in past NHLs, but that's still an option. So that being said, the most common face-off, if he's not going to try to get it to that left defenseman, is going to be a backhand straight back. So the counter to beat that is a tie-up draw. Now, he can also do a tie-up draw himself. However, I've got Couturier, and I know that I've got probably better face-off rating. And even if you both do a tie-up, again, it's going to be a jumbled mess, okay? So again, you play the safe play. It's under a minute left in the game. I don't want to take chances and risk losing the draw cleanly. And sure enough, tie-up win, and that is going to do it for this one. So guys, I hope this helps with face-offs a little bit. I know it's super confusing when it comes to all of the counters and everything like that. It's really going to come down to you guys memorizing that, because even if I show you all these clips and things like that, you need to really memorize the counters. So just, if you want to rewatch the video, stop it on that chart or just Google it. I think it was NHL face-off chart. Just make sure that you understand that, and then you can go through and see what beats what in this video. And then the face-off play, like I said, something that you really need to pay attention to in this game. It is super overpowered and something that you need to play for, especially as you climb the ranks in Rivals. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you think in the comments section down below, and please subscribe for daily NHL content. I'll see you next time.